So this is a story about how I became a life coach. So becoming a life coach was a weird experience. For me, I was a peer support specialist at my local mental health organization where I received help for my addiction and for mental illness and things like that prior to me working there. And so it was really special that I got a job at that mental health organization, and I was really grateful and honored to be there. And it really shaped me into being a much more professional version of the healer that I was naturally, right? So I knew that like I was a natural healer. I knew that like people gravitated towards me, that people had these transformational experiences when I would work with them. And I knew that I was doing something that was different, I think, than what I was, intended to be doing in the role that I was in. And I really knew that I was doing something that was on a soul level. I knew that I was doing something that was energetic and spiritual in nature when I would work with people. Now, I also knew that I had some limitations inside of organizations as to how I could help people. There was many roles. There was, it made it felt very restricted to me when I wanted to help people in a different, more unrestricted way. So I had sort of, and I knew there was only so much I could do. There was only so far I could grow as a person. There was only so much money you could make. There was only so many ways that you were allowed to help people. Like there was like a cap. And I knew that I wanted to do things in a bigger way, and I wanted to do things in a different way. So as I grew as a healer in myself, I knew I needed to do something different, that I wanted to work on my own because I had a different vision that was separate from the organization. And I began asking the people around me, the therapists and the psychiatrists and stuff that I knew, like, hey, what does it look like if I wanted to ever have like a private practice one day? Like, what does that look like? And they're like, okay, so you'll have to, they're like, are you in school? And I'm like, yeah, I just started my bachelor's. And they're like, well, you have to finish that, and then you'll have to go back for your master's, and then you'll have to do like these clinicals, and then you're gonna have to do this, that, and the other. And it was like, get these licenses, and how do you do that? Well, you have to do this, and it takes this much time, and it was just like really overwhelming and really hard to navigate and really confusing, and all the answers were different that everybody had, and it sounded like the biggest load of stress I'd ever heard in my life. And I looked at the people that were ahead of me in this field, right? And they all were miserable, and they were all stuck in the same barriers and situations that I so desperately wanted to get out of. And even with private practices, they were still so restricted, and they still had all these rules, and they still had all these boundaries, and it was still like they couldn't do things the way they wanted to, and they weren't free. And so I was like devastated because I was like, how can I ever make this vision come true if that's how you're allowed to do it on your own, right? And luckily, and by the grace of God, right, my boss at the time says to me, you're like a Tony Robbins. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And he's like, well, do you know who Tony Robbins is? And I was like, well, yeah, but I don't really know what he does. And I knew that he like spoke on stages, but I didn't really know anything about him or what his role was called or how he made the money or what, right? And he's like, he's a life coach. I was like, oh, life coach, what is that? And he's like, just help people, kind of like what you do. And he said that one of the things that was so different about the role that I was in as peer support specialist, and how I liked to do things naturally, was that peer support specialists were supposed to do small interventions that were short term. And you're supposed to help people get to a certain point and then work on a new goal. And I really loved to, and you're supposed to keep a bigger client list, help lots and lots of people with small things at a time. And I really like to have small client lists, and I only like to have a handful of people because I was doing this deep energy work with people, right? And so it's very overwhelming to me energetically as an empathic person to take on more than a handful of people. And so I would grab a hold of like 4 or 5 people, and I would just keep them. And we would do all of this amazing work to get transformative work together and watch them rise into these amazing people. And they would, I didn't want to leave them after like the one goal was done. We would just continuously do this rapid healing work that cycled into the next healing process. And when we just do it together over longer periods of time. And so he told me that was like one of the things that made me like a life coach, was that life coaches like, kind of hang out with people over these long extended journeys. And I was like, really? Well, that's for me. And he's like, and they can have private practices too. And I was like, what? And, so all of these things were very eye-opening, and like, just to be, told that I was in any way, shape, or form, like, this millionaire speaker, coach, person, author, all of that. I was like, like little old me, are you serious? And so of course, like that night, I go home and I Google Tony Robbins, and I'm all over, the internet, like, who is Tony Robbins? Like, what does he do? I'm like looking over his whole history, I'm reading his stories, I'm looking him up, watching his videos. Not like I hadn't seen him a million times before, but now I'm looking at it with fresh eyes, like trying to figure out, what does this guy do? What is this whole profession of life coaching? And so I looked up him, and then I also looked up like other life coaches, and I was like, this is me. These people are me. This is what I'm supposed to do. And so I also Googled how to be a life coach. And it turns out it's way simpler than being like a therapist or psychiatrist in a private practice. Okay. Way simpler. It basically was like, there is no regulations about how to be a life coach. Like, you don't have to have any kind of certification or any kind of licensure. And it's based on all your personal experiences, which so was peer support specialists. And so I was like, done, got that already. And so it was like, when I realized that there was no paper, there was no 4 years of college or 6 years of college or 8 years of college that I had to do, and a piece of paper that I had to get in order to be considered that thing. And it was basically, I remember having this thought, and I was like, so what? You just say you're a life coach, and then what, you are one? And then so I kind of had this moment of like declaration where I was like, okay, I'm a life coach. And then I rebranded, and I changed all the things on my websites and all the things on the social medias to reflect that I was now a life coach. And I loved that. And how fucking empowering was that it was like, well, I want to be that. And now I am. And I didn't, it was like anything else that I had ever wanted to be. It was like, well, here's this long, treacherous road with 20,000 billion obstacles and hoops you have to jump through, and other people that you have to impress and prove it to, and in order to be it. But this, you say you are, and then you are, right? And that was so in alignment with everything that I knew about manifestation, about law of attraction, about using, the power of the mind, the power of I am. And it was like, I say I am, and I am, right? That was me. That was my truth. And so I took that and ran with it. But then I also knew that, there's probably some people out there who like to see a certification, that feel safer with somebody who has a piece of paper that says they are what they are. And so I was like, yeah, maybe I should get something. So So I'm already branded as a life coach now. But now I'm like, okay, so how do you get a life coaching certification? So it turns out there are programs, there is education, there is some kinds of roles and in broad categories that make you, have some formal education around life coaching. And so I wanted that to be a little bit better. And so I found a life coaching certification program and I signed up for it. I paid for it that night. And I got my study material and I got to work studying. And I loved that experience too, because it helped me to differentiate what was the difference between what I was doing as a peer support specialist in a mental health organization and what was I going to be doing different as a life coach working on my own. And it was kind of like, okay, I see how there's some differences. And that was kind of cool too, because I got to merge the worlds together and figure out what was all the things that I loved about being a peer support specialist and that kind of more regulated, more structured stuff from the mental health organizations, and what is the more like lenient and whatever you want, I guess lenient, yeah, like in more unregulated side of like this life coaching thing that I wanted to take here and put it together into this amazing thing that now I get to be. And so that was how that came about. And so I became a certified life coach. And then I also had a master's of consciousness program that I had done through a local metaphysics school in Louisville, Kentucky, where I live close by. And so I knew that I did energy work, and I knew I had this spiritual, component to what I did. And so I wanted that to be a part of it. And I played around with, how I could put that in there. And I landed on like, let's just be really blunt and obvious and say life and spiritual coach, right? Because I played around though, I'm a consciousness coach, I'm a, this and that. And so I landed on life and spiritual coach. I thought that's something that everybody can kind of really quickly, I think, form a picture of who that person is. I can help you with the practical and the life, and then we're going to tie in that spiritual, interweave it, use the energy stuff that's just saying spiritual instead of like consciousness or energy or this or that, like left it open to me being able to use my spiritual gifts in whatever way it applied at that stage in my life and whatever way it would apply at whatever stage in my life, right? Because I knew I was going to grow and evolve in my own spiritual practices and my own consciousness and my own spiritual gifts. And so I wanted to leave it kind of open for that. But that's the cool thing too, like you get to design your title, you get to design your niche, you get to design, your specialties, you get to design your programs, you get to design your pathway, you get to change and evolve and grow as a coach. And what I also loved about it was that your reputation, your credentialing, and your what made you a reputable coach was your work, and not did you make it through however many years of school, and did you go through the motions, and did you do all the steps? Because whereas the majority of the people that I knew that were therapists in practice all around me were amazing and great, I also knew some that weren't amazing and great. And I knew some that you could tell, had formal education and just kind of took those steps and got to where they got because they knew how to be really good at school, and there was no depth to their work. And I didn't, I knew that it was easy to get from A to B without actually learning any true capacity for healing. And I wanted to be known for my deep and transformative capacity for healing. And I knew that with life coaching, or I found, that with life coaching, you became known for your work. You became known for the transformations that you would create in people. And you got to do that stuff in whatever way feels right to you. And I loved that empowering ability to create my life in the way that I wanted to, and create my work and create my business and create my own reputation in the way that I wanted to. And I guess the rest is history. Because now here I am telling you folks about how I did it. And so that's kind of how it was. And so if you want to be a life coach, pretty much all you got to do is claim it for yourself right now. Go, hey, I am a life coach. And then as soon as you know you are, then you get to start building what that looks like. And you get to start building that presence, and you get to build your credentialing. And you know, by combining, you know, whatever kind of trainings and life experiences and stuff that you want to pile on top of each other to create who you are and how you do what you do. And so that is how I became your favorite life coach. That's how I became a life coach, a life and spiritual coach, mind you. So if you want to keep hearing my stories, then you'll hit subscribe somewhere that's probably nowhere near where my finger is pointing, because I'm not an editor, but it will pop up at the end of this video, and you'll hit subscribe, or you can click down below and hit subscribe. And if you are a coach, go down in those comments and say hi to me. If you want to become a life coach, drop down in the comments and say hi to me. Let's be friends. Let's follow each other on social media and support each other, because the community is everything when it comes to networking, is everything. Community is everything when it comes to life coaching. It's all about building each other up together. And you can check out more of my stuff by going to www.iamraquel.com or at iamraquel on all the social media, and all of that will be in the description box below. Check it out. I think that's all I want to say. Okay. I love you guys. Bye.